So hello again, and here we are continuing with part two of the 2024 forecast. And in part one, I went over the Pluto's kind of dance across the Capricorn Aquarius line. And what I feel like adding is that Pluto, Sun and Pluto, so they conjuncted at the very last degree of Capricorn, before Sun first went into Aquarius on, what was it, Saturday? And then Pluto in the evening also joined. So these two occupying the same degree, 0 Aquarius, as Jupiter and Saturn did in 2020, is taking the effects of that 2020 event to a higher level. And so that also, I mean, we talked about also about Saturn and Uranus having an impact on Aquarius, because Saturn is the traditional or the ancient ruler of the sign of Aquarius. So from here, let's jump on and look at Jupiter and Uranus. So as always in astrology, we look back and try to make sense of it and find patterns, and that will hopefully inform us how the conjunctions or how the event may turn out in the future. So Jupiter and Uranus. So archetypal expression of Jupiter would be more, expansion, truth, faith, and Uranus, surprise, upheaval, and liberation, I would say. So when they conjuncted last time, that happened in Aries, and that was in June 2010, in September 2010, and then again the exact conjunctions in January 2011. And so what did we have then? We had Bin Laden was killed, supposedly, and we had already Gaza-Israel conflicts. We had the Arab Spring, and then the Deepwater Horizon oil rig disaster. And also, yeah, NASA says life on Saturn's moon Titan is possible. We had the Supreme Court ruled that Nigerian families were allowed to sue Pfizer, because Pfizer gave out drugs to the kids of these families, and without telling the parents, and they died. So the court then ruled that they can sue Pfizer, even though they have this immunity, which should raise the red flag to begin with. So, and then, yeah, we had a lot of rise in earthquakes and natural disasters. And then the period before, when it happened in Aquarius, Jupiter Uranus conjunct in Aquarius, that was in February 97. And that was when Clinton banned funding human cloning. And we all know that, I mean, we had the sheep, Dolly, that was cloned in the past already. So human cloning is definitely raising an ethical question. Then we had peace deals with Arafat, and then we had this interesting story. David Reimer, this was a couple. What are they? Mennonites, I think. Yes, Mennonites. They lived in California, in Canada, and this couple, they had 2 sons, and they wanted to circumcise the penises of their twins. They were twin boys, and the first one, David Reimer's surgery went bad, so they used a laser kind of method or so, and it went bad, so they couldn't repair his penis, and they made a girl out of him. And it took until until David became a teenager, and he always had that feeling that he isn't really a girl. So then the parents admitted what happened, and he was like mentally totally traumatized, and he identified as a man after that, and I think even he got in a relationship from what I remember. But like he took his life, and I think he was 29 years old when he just couldn't live with all this. And then we have the Hale-Bopp comet coming close to Earth, and we have another comet coming now in April, and I think it's the closest to Earth in June. So in April is when we have the eclipse going also. And I'm not quite sure whether I mentioned it in the first part, because due to the fact that we have the eclipse. No, I think I didn't mention it. I mentioned it in the short version on January 10th. So I will skip it right now, and because we will get to the eclipses in a little bit here. So what else? So yeah, there was a sect in San Diego, and there was a mass suicide connected with that sect, Heaven's Gate. And then before that, the period before that, that was in Sag, and that was in February, May, and September in 1983. So that was when the 3D printer was invented. Uranus stands for inventions, innovations. The first mobile phone came out, and then interestingly, Voyager 10 passed by Neptune, and we know that Neptune took Jupiter's job in being the ruler of Pisces. And then we have this young girl, Emanuela Orlandi, that disappeared in the Vatican. And I put it in here because it has come up in 2023 again. So they would open this case again and look into, like investigate again. So open this case again. That was interesting. So I wonder whether we will see something in that respect. Maybe they finally figure out what happened, or whatever, who took her. So, and then aviation accidents, which is also Uranus, and Sagittarius is long distance travel. And then the last time it happened, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction happened in Taurus, which is happening this year in 2024, same sign, Taurus. So that was the World War II and Hitler's genocide with gas cap chambers, and then we had Roosevelt serving a third term. There's a lot of speculation whether Trump still is running, or running, not like an active president, and Biden just like in this what is it called? Oh, what is it? Castle Rock, right? And Biden pulling the strings, and all these assumptions that are going around. So who knows? Let's just be open. We had Pearl Harbor was officially questioned. So I think because Jupiter wants really to get to the depth of the truth, and it's about justice. So maybe people really start asking questions in terms of all the measures that were taken in the Corona times, and with the elections and everything that is questionable. And so plutonium was isolated at a university in Berkeley, and the Z3 first computer was created in Berlin. And there also French colonialism was ended in Ho Chi Minh. Actually, by Ho Chi Minh. So, and then we had the Disney's animator strike. And that's interesting because last year we had the Disney strike of the writers and actors also. And then, so that was interesting. We had the state of Jefferson declared in Eureka, and that is Northern California, which is Eureka now. And so who knows, because it's happening in Taurus. Taurus is all about the land. Let's see. Next slide is then what we may expect The exact conjunction is on the 20th of April at 21 Taurus in 50 minutes, so almost 22 Taurus. And so the travel industry, of course, because Jupiter is long distance travel, and we will see whatever interruption or disruption or change is going to happen there. But I think also that people will be itching to travel and probably hopefully taking retreats, because that would help me out, and because it's all about learning, especially when Jupiter moves into Gemini in June, no, in May. And then, so we will reevaluate higher education, because there's a lot of indoctrination. I think in the first part I went into societal, like reshaping society. Social engineering is probably a good description for that. And so in schools, of course, that was when whoever had an interest in reshaping society started with the kids right away, and in indoctrinating them. And for example, I know that in studies, I mean, first of all, you're learning about the US. Was it the economic system in the US in German studies? So that is saying like the importance that there is in the master, so in the master work, instead of like looking at the own country. And in general, that the gender craziness that was brought even to daycares and elementary schools worldwide. So we will probably take a closer look at how higher education is also, like, how ethical is it? What do kids really need to know? Do they, I mean, are they trained to become consumers or sustainable humans? And that's the big question. So we all have also a good understanding of how the justice system works and how corrupt it is, and the clerical system with all the scandals in the Vatican. And also, I think that we will depart from organized religion, breaking free. Uranus is breaking free, and Jupiter is belief. So we will definitely reconsider whether we want a direct wire to God, or do we need a like a third party that we have to like go to churches and worship places. Exactly, that's the best way of saying it, instead of just directly connecting to source. And also with that is underlined with Saturn in Pisces also. So it's really spirituality that is becoming or getting into focus. And then, yeah, I think also that, I mean, Uranus is flashlights and like thunder and flashes. So we will probably also get hunches and insights about what's going on in life and in our world, and our intuition will grow stronger, because also we have to just keep up with all the fake images and all this. So logically, then we will become better at detecting whether somebody is telling us or lying to us. Because Jupiter, if like Sag, if you don't, so Jupiter with Sagittarius, we know that, and if you look at the misuse of those qualities, then it is lying and exaggeration and non-truth. So, and also because it's in Taurus, taking place in Taurus, we will look at agriculture and how we handle food, right now, as I'm saying this, there's massive protest in Europe with farmers. They take their tractors and even the trucks that deliver the food of the farmed uh, produce to the stores. They all are on a massive strike. So that is probably not going away soon. And then, yeah, the regulations about it. And it's really not about the like sponsorship programs for agricultural diesel or the use of diesel in agriculture. It's so much more. It's all this dictating the prices and trying to kill farmers and farms in order to synthetically produce food with this like lab created meat and all this like eating bugs. I'm a foodie, so this is just not working for me. And so then, yeah, of course, in Taurus, which is Venus ruled, it's all about values, self-value, and our financial affairs, and what is important for us in terms of like how we identify with value. And so with like the faith and optimism rising, because Jupiter is the benefic in the zodiac, so probably that will um yeah will create optimism and investments in cryptocurrencies, even though that will not be a long thing. And I think also that I'm not a financial advisor at all, but I think that this is so volatile still because it also depends on the internet and it is vulnerable to hacking. Plus, I mean, I think only Bitcoin and Ethereum are the ones that are decentralized, and that's the idea of blockchain financial systems to be decentralized. So we will see. I don't know. I think it's just a short uptick. We will see. And then, of course, quantum jumps in high tech development and inventions. We will see. Oh, I just talked about that one. Then, so yeah, I am. People will become more courageous with a sextile to Mars, and also adding, of course, to chaos and revolution. So more protests probably will be seen, and where people go on the streets for freedom and justice. So now, I mean, I saw already several documentaries and just interviews of people that have gone through transgender surgery, and I saw one picture that was scary. They took a chunk of meat out of the person's thigh, the upper leg, and then they showed a picture of the like a reproduction of a penis, that was just so wrong. And then they had like this bonus hole of the previous vagina. And I mean, if we just think of all the medication that the people have to take in the long run, so I think there is a big like a backlash coming, and also the people that put the pressure on these young children to make the change and go for make it really easy for them to go for the surgery and change their gender. I saw also high school students on a little talk show or whatever, and they were, I think they were like 13 or so, and they had one person that was taking like talking for like really making a decision at an early age, and the other 3 or 4, whoever, how many ever there were in total, I don't remember. They said, no, I don't feel mature enough to make a decision, so I wouldn't want to be pushed. So I mean, they're barely starting dating and trying to understand themselves, and yeah, we will see where that goes. And let's see. Oh yeah, so big karma for big pharma. That's what I think is coming around. We had that previous example, Pfizer being sued by these Nigerian families. And as I mentioned earlier, also that maybe this Emanuela Orlandi case is being picked up or resolved even. Um, Actually, there's another case, Maddie McCann, beautiful little girl that got lost in Portugal. Uh, British family that went on vacation and she was kidnapped, and so they have someone now, and they found new proof that this person was the one. So we will see Jupiter for justice. And then, yeah, geo-weather changes, Uranus, Taurus. I think I mentioned that also in the first part about with Pluto, the Lord of the Underworld, and the Tesla earthquake machine. So we don't know, and definitely it is a thing, but we will have to see how crazy it gets also with the volcano eruptions, and there were plenty already towards the end of last year and beginning of 2024 in Iceland. I think there were some hefty ones, and then then we have Uranus turning direct in January. So this week, actually, on Friday, this Friday, the 26th of January, and that is within a week of Pluto entering Aquarius. And so the modern ruler of Aquarius turning direct. I mean, it will probably take, I mean, not probably, it will take time for Uranus to pick up on speed, but I think slowly but surely we will see, probably in February already, big impacts on finance, agriculture, value and money. And then also, so I put in the CBDC tracker again. I did this, I put it in my sites in the 2023 forecast, because there you can see which are the countries that adopted it, which are the countries that reject it. So it's interesting to see the development there. And yeah, humanitarian matters, definitely. So I saw also there's this island, Diego, what is it? Diego something. It's by Madagascar in the Indian Ocean, and it had been used, kind of hijacked by the Brits, by the British military, and used as a military station. Diego, what is it? I just don't remember right now. Maybe it comes back. But I just read recently that there are Indian Tamil people that had been placed on that island. And so the question is, I mean, they had been like asylum seekers, so they had been accommodated really provisionally. And I think maybe the original inhabitants will be able to get back their land. And so then Uranus conjunct Mars, and that is with Algol in July. Also on July 14, it's exact. So Algol, we all know that this is the Medusa losing the head. So we will see maybe a couple of heads are not like figuratively rolling in terms of the karma coming around. And then, so, but on the same token, then you have also the trine with Pluto. And Pluto, Uranus is definitely alchemical, but then with Mars, you can have like sparks flying. And then we have Jupiter conjunct Mars in Gemini, square Saturn in Aquarius, August, September. So there probably, because Saturn stands for law and regulations. So maybe we make some changes then. And yeah, reversal of sanctions or maybe new sanctions. And also like this international law, this international court that is yeah, this controversy about why are they not doing anything against what happens between Israel and Gaza, while they had been like really harsh on Russia with Ukraine. So this like double standard is kind of becoming obvious, and we will see what we may see. That's something, I mean, we all don't know with Uranus. How can you ever know? Uranus is the surprise factor in everything. And then so we're finding alternatives, and also in terms of these international courts to begin with, like their corruptiveness, their corruption and all this. And in terms of money, we had times in the past already when after this, the First or Second World War, I don't remember, they came up in Austria with an alternative money system until the bank figured it out and they stopped this. So on farmers markets, we are using already tokens. Many of the farmers markets, there you buy tokens and then you use tokens, or we just write papers, like or barter, I cut your hair, you repair my car, or we just write paper, IOUs, whatever. So there are always solutions, even if there should be like a limited internet and we cannot use cryptocurrency, those of us who have, we will see. So there's definitely, this year, we will definitely see changes in terms of how we use money and who gives out the money and who says how much can be printed and who dictates the interest rates. And we all know that the Federal Reserve is a private company. So let's see. And then September 5th, transiting Uranus squares the US moon. And as I said, it's just this is because I'm residing in the US, so that's why I kind of tailored this forecast to the US chart and to US audience. I'm actually planning on adapting a version for European people also. So let's see. And so with that, the moon is the people, of course, and also the feelings, like the collective, so that people will not feel valued by the government anymore, and they feel like slaves. And of course, then the desire to break free from that. Okay, so let's move on. Now we're getting to the eclipses. The first one is a lunar eclipse at 5 Libra. And with the South Node in Libra, it's really getting us out of codependency and from anything, even in relationship, in like personal charts. And it always is necessary to look like how's your own chart looking like. So this one is just like a mundane chart, basically the event chart of the moment, based on Garden Grove, California time zone, and you will have to adapt it to wherever you are located, of course, and then you have to make sure that to see whether an eclipse is working in your personal chart, that you do have points that are touched on. And so in this case, then the general message of this eclipse is just get out of your codependency and passive aggressiveness. And the opposite sign, of course, is Aries, get into action. And it's like this, yeah, getting into action. And then the next one, which probably has the biggest impact, That is the total solar eclipse that is visible. The path goes through Texas. As this is the second solar eclipse. Let's go line by line here. So the it's 19 areas, and it's only 4 degrees off the North Node, and it's conjunct Chiron. And the US has a Chiron return, which is exact on the 20th, and it's in the 4th house of lands, of like property. So, and the question I say whose, because I mean I'm a green card holder here, and I think it has always been like a free country. You know, you came here, and depending what you put in, you can live as a free person. It's not the case anymore, of course, and especially some of these I mean, probably I can even say democratic cities that are so changed from whenever I came first. I mean, I never wanted to live personally in the US. I preferred other countries, and then I had a friend, and he wanted to get me over, and I wasn't really fond of it. I visited Fort Wayne, Indiana, and was not so impressive. I liked Texas and New Mexico, so those were interesting, but I never thought. I mean, it's my personal preference, but once I saw San Francisco, I totally fell in love, and I had a friend living here, and it turned out that I got transferred by my previous employer, and I had the greatest time. It was I totally changed my opinion about this country, and I saw all these great things about this country. And when I saw in the 2020 the homeless people taking over, and how run down San Francisco became in certain areas, not all areas, of course, it was so sad for me to see that. But so why I'm saying all this is, if you go back to how this country was founded, it was kind of taken away from others. So there are people that come here, and they go through legal immigration processes, and then if you just go and take a country away from the native people, that's where I don't feel good about it, I have to say. So, and that is what happened. So I don't know. I think that a lot of people realize what happens with the like what happened past tense with the all these not monasteries, what are they, like the missions, the path of the missions. They're so beautiful, the buildings, these the missions, and but the brutality that went on converting the Native Americans, that was it's just heartbreaking. So that's definitely a question. And in some places I see that the original inhabitants kind of get back at the white people in terms of mm, playing on their emotions when it gets to Las Vegas and places like that, and like gambling, because it's a lot in the hands of Native American people, and also the dams, because the water is so important. So I don't know, maybe there's some justice also, or at least, recognition of like whose land is it really, and who can just come and say like, okay, I put a stake in here, and I take it without invitation. So that has still been a sensitive question in my personal case, or for me personally, my opinion only. So Chiron return, that means like really working with your wounds, and maybe that is bringing a lot of healing to how this country came about. Okay, and then conjunct Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde is definitely not not the best, like in terms of the mindset. So, I mean, care has to be taken in terms of clarity in communication, clarity in thinking, the right mindset, and because of this conjunction with Eris, which is the goddess of strife, I think that there will be a lot of discord in communications, hard communications, and verbal outbreaks, aggression, and it's opposite the solar eclipse of the 14th of October at 21 Libra, and that was the one that was so close to the Israel and Gaza conflict. And it's it's okay. So it's with the natal Sun and Saturn, with the natal Saturn in the 10th house of the US. That means the world status and the head of state. So let's see. It's just definitely like a reset button in the 10th house of the US. So it also coincides, as I mentioned earlier, with this devil comet, and it's called that because its tail looks like horns, and as I said, it's closest to Earth in June 2024, but because of the eclipse and the like darkening of the sky, it may be visible. So I don't know. I'm trying to be there in the Kerrville area in Texas, which would be super interesting. And then, yeah, lastly, the path marks an X. Many astrologers talk about that with the 2017 eclipse that came down from Seattle, Portland area, and then diagonal and exiting out Texas, and I believe into the Americas, also into Central and Southern America. I don't recall by heart, but you can look it up, eclipse.com. There are great websites that are showing the path, and then you can see the X really. And so this time it comes up from the south, from Southern America and Central America, where the US has big problems with the immigrants, illegal immigrants, and open borders, and the drug cartels, human trafficking, and all that jazz. So that's definitely an event that probably will shake some headlines. And then the next one, insofar interesting as it already dips into Piscean, Virgoan energies, where the nodes are shifting in 2025, so next year. And so that is, yeah, spirituality versus illusion, because we all know that Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, is standing for either spirituality or total like brain fog, illusion, deception also. So critical thinking is paramount. And then the last eclipse is at 10 Libra, conjunct Mercury, and there, so I don't know, maybe that's putting labels on the internet, even like you have to have an ID in order to log on, and or maybe how cryptocurrency and wallets, digital wallets, are managed and controlled, and so lots of talk, of course, with Mercury. There's, I don't know, it may even affect the sanctions also in terms of trade and money transfer. And then, yeah, so the Grand Trine, I think, is nice. in water is also I mean, emotional. So it gives maybe emotional strength, cooperation, and yeah, then with Venus as the ruler. So maybe we're coming to some peace talks. So this it will just be then in the recording. I don't go over this. I always like to have bird's eye view. So finally, we're getting to the Mayan perspective. And so the year bearer. So I'm using the calendar that is based on Guatemaltecan Mayan calendar and not the one based on Arguelles' work. I don't want to say that his work is bad, but I don't think he's considering the leap years. And so I find it does make, for me, it does make a lot of sense. And of course, we astrologers, we have not really been using the Mayan branch of astrology that intensely so that we can really draw on safe information there. It's really experimental, and I think it's definitely worth exploring. So the year bearer for this year, 2024, the year starts on the 31st of March, and it's 13, and then we always have the direction, and then Kaban, and that stands for Earth. So it's the keywords here, Earth and force, motion, and that of course, if you move Earth, then you have an earthquake, and also thought, and associated with matchmaking, medicine, and commerce. It's an intellectual sign. It's practical, mentally active, and stands for progressive thinkers. It is fixed and has leadership skills. Head dominant, a little like Gemini and Aries, and with a hint of Leo in terms of courage and fixity. And then so the direction east stands for opportunity and to demonstrate self-worth. And that sounds familiar, right? Because we looked at Jupiter, Uranus in Taurus. So this also wants to invite us to recognize our self-worth, which the institutions and the governments worldwide we don't feel valued. We feel like, as I said, with the healthcare system, like return customers, and that's what we are being kept. Okay, so then east, let's see, becoming, so the east, of course, is a new start because it's when you look at the horizon, the east point is the starting point, the Aries point, and it's where the sun rises at the horizon. So, and that also with the first house, of course, associated with Aries, that is bold initiatives. And so that balance is also looking automatically. You always have an axis and polarity. So it's about co-creating because on the other end of the spectrum you have Libra, and and that also says a creative and mental and fertile and abundant. So those are the keywords for the east direction. And then we have the number, which is 13, Akshlahu, and that is a sacred number. That is the synthesis of all previous numbers. And in Mayan astrology, I have maybe this, I can put a link in the description, because I had a more intense talk about Mayan astrology that goes really into the day signs, 20 day signs, and has 13 tresenas, and trese is 13. So, and the meanings of those. And so I will put a link under this here. And then it combines, so the 13 is like a conglomeration, or like all together. It's like the rounding up of all the previous attributes. It brings change and of course death and renewal. stands for Pluto, and also it's like the death and rebirth. And because Pluto is a big energy influence in 2024, because it's going into Aquarius for the long haul for 20 years. So then we have the cosmic completion, and so the Mayan, in the Mayan scripts, they say it's skirt made of stars in a feminine shape in the Milky Way. So we had been living in a very masculine, like toxic masculine patriarchy in the like Pluto and Capricorn, and in general, I mean, in the past probably a couple of 100 years, with all the like top-down management and like rulership, the corporate world and all this, and women having to fight for the same pay. In some countries, even had to fight for being able to vote or drive a car or so. So, and then mentioning the feminine shape is probably indicating that we're getting more into a balance, and we don't want to have a feminine, like an what is it, like over emphasis on feminine qualities or feminine rulership either, because the new idea and the new era and the new age is really about Aquarius, because it is about equality and on eye level. So that was interesting. And then we have the Venus phase is very important in the Mayan astrology also. And we think of Venus as the feminine, attractive, the Venusian, the beauty and all this, but in Mayan astrology, it's rather the warrior. Oops. And so the superior conjunction is the next phase that starts on April 10. April is a very active, energetic month, not only because we have the eclipses in April, but also the Chiron return of the US, and we know how important the US has been in world affairs. So okay, so the superior conjunction is basically behind the sun. It's a 90-day phase. So that means the sun is between Earth and Venus, and a 90-day phase. And this is typically associated with struggling for what we want, and it brings questions of power and dominance, which is, I mean, reflecting the developments with the exposures of corruption, with the Pluto, Capricorn, and Aquarius journeys of Pluto journeying through Capricorn and Aquarius, both having a strong influence of Saturn, with Saturn being the ancient ruler of Aquarius, but also Uranus, which can like suddenly disrupt. So when I mentioned at the beginning, or the title of this forecast is the old guard versus the sovereign human, it's really an old guard. Of course, when you're ruling, you're writing the rules and all this, you don't want your boat to be rocked. Of course, it's convenient. You have people working for you, and you're giving the tone, and the money flows your way. Then you don't want to change anything just for the sake of like others having their freedom and having their sovereignty. So that's why there's a lot of upheaval. So questions of power and dominance, and then also the ethics. I cannot stress the importance of ethics enough. So, and it is good to see in this Venus phase that the question of right and wrong comes up again. And so some showing their ugly face, and then we have the drive for power, all the things that I just mentioned, and then the sexual like sexuality and violence becoming an issue. So with all the names coming out with the Epstein names list and the details that come out in the testimonies of the accusers, that I mean people will be shocked. I mean, people who have been trusting governments and businesses, big corporations, also like the makers of pharmaceutical products, that you trust them. They wear a white coat, and they have always been figures that we trusted. We trusted doctors, that they know that like what is good for us. And yeah, and in the end, many of them, I mean, they got used to making a good money and enhancing their income by getting paid if they prescribe certain drugs, and also working on commissions. And nothing wrong with these network things. And I know personally doctors that are recommending doTERRA essential oils. I think it's great. And that's a good way of expressing that and the networking. But if you prescribe chemical or synthetical drugs to a patient just to make money, then the ethical question is likely an ethical question. And so we face the darkness, and that's a very scorpionic or Plutonian thing, to look into the dark, because Pluto and Scorpio and the eighth house, these three are all about the occult, like what's hidden, and we want to find out what's hidden and bring it to the light and purify it. And that's the expression of Scorpio, which is the sign that Pluto rules. So it has three symbols actually. It's the scorpion, the lower instinct of Scorpio, and that is the insect or the animal that stings you. We all know the story about the frog that Scorpion says, "Hey, can you carry me over the river or over the pond?" And the frog says, "No, because you will sting me." And then Scorpio convinces frog, and of course Scorpio stings frog, and both drown. So that, and then there's the eagle, that is the animal that flies the highest of all the birds, and he's like on a higher level, but he comes down and rushes into a situation and fixes it, and then goes back into his lone zone in the higher atmospheres, because Scorpios really like their privacy. And then you have the Phoenix expression of Scorpio, that is, for example, a drug addict who becomes clean and helps other drug addicts to get out of their habits. It's yeah, it's like having walked in the moccasin of the other and coming from firsthand experience. So that's the facing the darkness within and the drive to correct it, wanting to correct it out of yourself, and also choose ethically. And so this is the Venus phase. Also, maybe I just do this real quick. So the Quetzalcoatl, there's this little story about Quetzalcoatl that is born as a god, and everything is going nicely in his kingdom. And at one point, three magicians come and lure him into drinking a potion. So they have what's it called? The pulque drink. So he gets drunk, and then he makes love to his own sister, wakes up like hangover in the morning, and finds his sister next to him, and he's like totally ashamed. And then there's the phase of repenting himself, or like being ashamed about himself, and going into like judging himself. And then also the gods judge him, and in the end he removes himself from the kingdom, so he like goes away on a boat or so, and then the cycle repeats when he comes back. So it's this phase when he judged himself, and or the gods do judge him for the sin that he does. And in the story, it was incest. So, and that's when we recognize our faults and errors and gain insight. And then the heliacal rising is usually not a good sign in the Mayan history. So it hasn't been a good sign. And so that is August 18 last year. That's the current phase, and that was 9 ebb, and it's the one Cantresena. So that is the morning star phase, of course, the aggressive phase because of the influence of the first house, Aries, and Mars. And then this is the phase where Quetzalcoatl is sinning. Ebb is the tooth, the jaw, and grass. The direction is south, and that stands for connection, death, water, and mildew, and excessive rains. We have seen a lot more rain in California, Southern California. So I can contest or attest to that. And then Kan stands for being self-confident and seeks to be seen, so that it sounds a little Aryan also. Aryan slash Leo and reactive, and can express this through sex. So this again putting an emphasis on the importance of or the like, yeah, I would say maybe the quantity of sex scandals in the news. Let's say it like that. And then the next heliacal rising of Venus, which is a testing and challenging period, will be March 27 next year, 2025. So that's 11 Kawak in the one Muluk Dresina, and Kawak stands for storm and rain. It has useful qualities, concern for welfare of others. So there's a humanitarian hint, like a humanitarian aspect or energy that plays into this upcoming phase. And then the direct direction is west, and that's cooperation again, because it has the quality of Venus and the 7th house of cooperation. And then I think we probably see a lot of COVID cleanup, or I mean, there's this new planned disease X where they are already announcing a disease X that is supposedly deadlier and more dangerous and all this. So the question is, what will people do with that? Because we know that we can basically handle anything with just common sense, taking precautions, common sense. And then the question is, what is the intent behind these? I mean, are they natural viruses coming up, really? With all the talk about biolabs in the Ukraine, and also there was a biolab here in California, kind of like I think in the Inland Empire. And then exposing child trafficking, and then yeah, the Epsteinian people, like people that have taken joy in being like being against the will with minors. See, there's if there is an age difference of 20 years, I think this is rather common. It's not so uncommon. But if the other person is giving consent, that's the important thing. If you do anything to a person who's not ready to do it, and infants, which is just sick. So that's a tumor in society that has to be taken out. It's just very, very sick. Taking advantage of, and also disabled people, children and disabled minors that are not capable of defending themselves, and animals for that matter. So then, yeah, understanding climate change and what can affect climate change, and whether it is maybe really only this solar cycle that we are in, and maybe there's more hype to it and more shaming of humans. It is definitely making a difference with all the war machinery and jets and tanks versus people that are just using their pickup truck to move about when they're living in a rural area, and cows farting. So I think we have to really take a new look at that, at who's to blame, like who's the biggest polluter. Is it rather factories and unnecessary private jets and all this? Because I mean, we had this scandal. There was one meeting in Europe, and I think it was even von der Leyen, and she took a private jet for a 50-kilometer distance to go to a meeting. And then one other thing where people notice it, because people are more vigilant now, and there are flight checkers and flight trackers. So they found that 2 ministers were attending a meeting in India from Europe, and I think even from Germany, and they both took an individual flight, a jet. So the question is that necessary? So those things will probably raise eyebrows. And so yeah, I think, I mean, it's already starting that we take a different look at the turmoils that are going on in Israel with the like international court, and the actions, and the people are not the country, right? So the people are, I think we should really look at the people of the country, because in many cases, especially these days, the people are not they don't agree with the leadership anymore. That's why there's a big upheaval. So there's probably then a new look at the leaders of those countries that the turmoil is coming from. And then yeah, civilian protests will because people had it. People just had it. They are embarrassed by their leaders. So we will clean out. Yeah, I think I talked about that. Government, doctors, and also in personal relationships. So all those toxic people in our lives, I think that we will see a lot of breakups, that are where relationships are just not working if they are based on if they're inauthentic, if they're not based on true collaboration, if one is manipulating the other. And then yeah, so people becoming self-sufficient, retreating for introspection, battle between the dark and the light. Definitely so. Exposure of war machinery and industry is involved, turning to the mysteries of the universe. And that's taken from the book that has been a true companion for me, this book, Bruce Scofield and Barry Orr, who wrote the book about Mayan astrology that I really liked. So that also the mysteries of the universe are stronger than man-made laws. I mean, of course, we have to have regulations, right? Because especially with Pluto in Aquarius, if we don't have self-discipline, as I mentioned earlier, also, there will be chaos. So we have to make sure that we are self-disciplined and we have a good, solid foundation and ethical what is that? Like diligent, all these good traits, all these good Saturnian traits that we need in order to be free, Uranus. And the mysteries also with Saturn in Pisces I think that our belief, like believing in ourselves and our own spiritual hygiene, is so important for the next couple of years, especially as we go, Saturn goes closer to Neptune, and when they are all in the same soup, then definitely you feel the energies of it already. And so protecting yourself from like mental illness, you need a um, safe belief system, a sound, critical, healthy belief system and spirituality that is not based on trusting a certain, I don't know, like a, what is that, like a church, like a dogma and all this, and only you're only free and you're only, God only loves you when you go to church on Sundays or whatever, and then on Mondays you're beating your wife and you're stealing from your boss or so. So that is definitely not working anymore, because I think that we see a lot of transparency with Pluto and Aquarius and thereafter. And then the exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, the spiritual planet, will happen in Aries. So that's action. And so let's look at this one here. So I had that also popped into my, I think I did pop it into the 2023 forecast slides. So last year we had the year of the rabbit, when we all went into the rabbit holes and did our research. And this year will be the Chinese year of the dragon. And that's when we probably will spew some fire and make sure that we are heard. We will make ourselves heard. So it coincides with Leo, which is also a fire sign. And then, yeah, we have the East. In 2024, we have the East as the direction, and we have Kaban as the year bearer. So if we jump to 2020, we see, okay, so we had red, which is about busyness and being very mindful and being like nimble on your feet and adaptable and fast and like industrious. And we had Aries, which is also very similar energy to the rat, the Chinese rat. And we had fire again, which Aries is a fire sign. So we had East again, and we had Kaban again. What did we see in 2020? And then so we can probably assume a similar expression or a similar energy in 2024 and in 2028, even though we have the Sagittarius as the fire sign, we have the East again, and we have Kaban again. And so that gives us a little bird's eye view. And then we always, like, I always like to end on a constructive note. So we chose this incredible time to bring our piece to the puzzle. I'm convinced by that. And we always have the means. We have always the tools that we need to resolve the task at hand. We are many, and we are the change. And it's really a lot of Mockingbird media, Operation Mockingbird, that makes it, that wants to tell us we are a minority, and we are not. And then Saturn, Neptune, double down on boosting up your immune system. I don't want to scare people, but I mean, we've seen that there, I mean, COVID is, I mean, I don't want to say that this thing was nothing. So that's not what I say, because there were a lot of people that got infected. But what I want to say is that there was gain of function involved. And I think, no, I'm convinced that this was put out on purpose. That's my personal view. And you never know. So if you have a healthy immune system, automatically your mindset will be stronger and will be more optimistic. And that's what we need, because we chose a time that is very similar to the French Revolution and also to the Civil War here in the US. So those were not children birthdays, right? So we have to make sure that we are our body, which is our vehicle that carries us through life, and we have to make sure it works well. Digestion, immune system, respiratory system, nervous system, super important, especially also with Uranus, Jupiter. Uranus is the parasympathetic nervous system, and Aquarius has to do with the nervous system. So that, and then we have Pluto and Aquarius, collaboration on eye level, and then vibrate responsibly. That is super important because we're evolving as a humanity. So with the uptick in like the time is speeding up, and everybody has noticed that with whomever you talk, it feels like, oh, it's time flies by really, and maybe it's because we're just getting older, and as a child it seemed like 1 week seemed like a long period of time, and even from one birthday to the next, oh my God, eternity. But I think that time definitely has changed, and we see the result of our mindset, like our self-talk. So that is super important. Are we beating ourselves up, or are we having a healthy um, image of self? How do we see ourselves? That tells us, are we ending in misery, or do we thrive? Because vibration is what it's an inner job. We see and attract based on what we are vibrating out. And it's not the other way around, that we're pointing outside and we want to change the outside. It's the best example I think is I don't remember who came up with it, but it's a radio. So I think it was Esther and Jerry Hicks those days. So what do you want to yell at the radio because you're angry at the song that is being played, or are you reaching forward and turning the dial and getting a different vibration? So it's really, you're doing it out of yourself to change the frequency, and by just changing your mindset, let's say something upsets us and we're disappointed by maybe somebody not holding their promise or keeping their promise, or somebody not acting as we hoped or so, then we have the freedom. Nobody can prevent us from saying, like, I look at it differently now. Now I see it, I take it as the end of an illusion. The German word is eine Enttäuschung, the end of an illusion. So this is, and also Desillusion in Spanish. It's really the end. You're getting, you have clarity. So yippee-yay. So just see it differently. And even things that you hoped you would get, there's a reason it didn't turn out now. It may turn out a different time. But this keeping in a lower vibration for a longer time is affecting our health on the long run. So, and then the next one is ethics, and authenticity is the new cool. Mentioned that earlier also, because people just pick up our vibes. They do. Our eyes, they're the windows of the soul, and our eyes speak whether we're truthful, and you can just tell. If you listen to a child, they are more, in most cases, they're more truthful. Some children, of course, I have to admit, some children may be lying, but you can tell. And then, yeah, the spiritual hygiene it has to be a form of life. It cannot be only like, oh, it's this day and I have my meditation class, or I'm doing it now. It has to be, we have to constantly be like a ship on the course, and we have to course correct when we notice we go off. And the better, like the more we are conscious about that, and having our like a radar detector that says like, oh, I'm not I'm like self-destructive right now. I'm having negative thoughts against me. I'm doubting what I said I would do. I self-doubt myself. Then we have to self-correct. We have to self-correct and say, okay, I slid off my path for a little bit, but I pick myself up, and because I know where I want to go and where I want to see myself. So result oriented, be a result oriented. So that's what we have. That's all she wrote, as my astrology teacher said. So if you have questions, feel free, reach out. And as I said, I will put a couple of links under the description. So take care, everyone.